The house had never been so quiet. Even when Christine was away at one of her charity events, or when she spent hours on the phone with friends, there was always a hum in the background, the sound of life. Now, with her gone, it felt like the walls were closing in on me, pressing down on me with the weight of her absence. I'd been to the hospital, signed the papers, made all the calls. I'd held it together while the family arrived, while the funeral plans were made. But now that the service was over, and the casseroles from the neighbors had stopped arriving, all I had left were empty rooms and an even emptier heart. Christine had always been the steady one in our marriage. I handled the physical work, yard maintenance, fixing the car, whatever else was necessary. She took care of the emotional stuff. She ran the household, handled the bills, and kept the family together. It worked. Or so I thought. But there was one thing about Christine that had always intrigued me. Her office. It sat at the end of the hallway, behind a closed door that she locked every night. I'd never questioned it. After all, she had her own work, her own projects, and I respected her space. She'd give me quick, cheerful updates. Just some paperwork, Doug. Nothing to worry about. And I hadn't worried. Not until she was gone. The night after the funeral, as I sat alone in the living room, I kept thinking about that office. I hadn't been in there since she died. It felt wrong to even consider it, but the curiosity gnawed at me. What could she have been hiding? What was so important that she kept it locked away from me, from everyone? Thank you, my friends, for tuning in today. I appreciate each and every one of you for being here. Tell me, what time is it where you're watching from? I love hearing from you all. Do me a favor, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe. Now back to my story. I reached for the key she'd always left on the kitchen counter, the one that opened the office door. It was still there, exactly where it had always been. My fingers brushed over the brass as I stood up and walked down the hall, my heart beating a little faster with each step. The house felt cold, more empty than it ever had before, and the quiet seemed to echo in the hallway. I unlocked the door slowly, the click of the lock breaking the stillness. I pushed it open, and for a moment, I stood there, unsure of what to expect. The room was exactly as I remembered it. Neat, orderly. But there was something about it now, something different. The blinds were drawn tightly, the light dim. On the desk sat a legal pad, open to a page filled with neatly written notes. But it wasn't the notes that caught my attention first. It was the binders stacked high on the floor, the ones I'd never seen before. I stepped closer, and as I did, my gaze fell on a small wooden crate beside the desk. Inside it were manila folders, each labeled with names, cities, and dates. My pulse quickened as I flipped through the top folder. It was filled with bank statements, payment receipts, and something that sent a chill through me. A ledger for something called the Sunrise Fund. I couldn't make sense of it. The fund was listed as having accounts in various places: Cleveland, Lakewood, Chicago, even Jacksonville. The amounts were substantial, far more than our savings. In fact, they were more than I could have imagined. And the names, each one listed beside a dollar amount, seemed familiar, but out of place. Who were these people? Why had she been keeping track of them? I pulled out more folders, each one detailing the same thing: bank accounts, names, and transactions. There was one that stood out, a file marked Rivergate Community Development. I opened it, my hands trembling. Inside were more bank statements, each showing large sums of money being funneled into accounts I didn't recognize. The pages flipped by quickly, each one revealing more connections, more transactions, and more questions than I could handle. Christine had been running some kind of investigation. She had been involved in something far bigger than I could have imagined. But why hadn't she told me? Why hadn't she trusted me enough to share this part of her life with me? I sat down at the desk, overwhelmed. I read through the files again, trying to piece together what it all meant. It didn't add up. It didn't make sense. Christine, my Christine, had been involved in something that looked far from innocent. The woman I had trusted, the woman I had spent my life with, had been keeping secrets from me. The truth hit me hard, like a slap in the face. I didn't know her at all. I felt the anger rise in me, mixing with the confusion. How had I missed this? Why hadn't she told me? As I sat there in the dim light of the office, the reality of it all sank in. I didn't just lose my wife, I lost the woman I thought I knew. The one who locked herself away every night, keeping secrets I wasn't even allowed to see. Now, with her gone, the weight of those secrets crushed me. What was she involved in? And what was I supposed to do with this newfound knowledge? I didn't sleep much after that night. The office, the files, the Sunrise Fund, they all haunted me. I couldn't let it go. Christine's secrets felt like a weight around my neck, and the more I thought about it, the more I realized that I couldn't ignore it. I had to understand what she had been involved in, even if it tore everything I thought I knew about her apart. The next morning, I returned to the office. I wasn't ready to leave it all behind. The binder I had found, filled with names, was still on the desk. I opened it again, but this time I focused harder. Names jumped out at me. Some were from our neighborhood, others from nearby towns, but one name stood out more than the rest: Harold Boyle. The name was written in Christine's neat handwriting, marked beside a large amount of money, $50,000. I knew that name. Harold Boyle was a banker at Lake Erie Trust, and I'd seen him around town. He was always dressed sharply, with that confident air of someone who was in control of everything around him. But why was his name on Christine's list? Why had she been tracking him? I flipped through more of the pages, looking for connections. I found another file, this one marked Strongsville Auto, and inside were more records of transactions, money moving from one account to another, all linked to the same companies and the same people. As I sifted through the documents, a sickening realization hit me. Christine hadn't just been investigating, she had been collecting evidence that tied Harold Boyle to fraud, money laundering, and a scheme that reached far beyond what I had imagined. I wasn't sure what to make of it. I had spent my life believing in Christine's honesty, her integrity, and now everything I had ever known felt like a lie. She had kept this from me? Why? What was she trying to protect me from? Or was I just too blind to see the truth? As I sat there, lost in thought, the phone rang. It was Mark, my son. He was calling to check in, to see how I was holding up. I hadn't spoken to him much since Christine passed. He'd been busy with work in Dallas, and I hadn't wanted to burden him with my thoughts about what I'd found. But now, hearing his voice, I realized I couldn't keep this from him forever. "Hey, Mark," I answered, trying to sound normal, but my voice caught. "Dad, are you okay? How's everything going?" Mark asked, his voice full of concern. "I'm fine," I said, though I knew I wasn't. It's been a lot, you know?" "I can only imagine," Mark replied. "Listen, I know this is tough, but we're all here for you. If you need to talk, you can always call me, okay?" I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. "Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it." We talked for a few more minutes about the funeral arrangements and the family coming together, but the whole time I couldn't stop thinking about what I had uncovered. Before I hung up, I hesitated. "Mark, There's something I need to tell you. Something about your mom. I don't know how to explain it, but there's a lot she wasn't telling me. A lot she kept hidden." Mark was quiet for a moment. "What do you mean? What's going on?" "I found some things. Some files. She was involved in something. Something big. Something with Harold Boyle and these businesses. I don't know the whole story yet, but she was tracking them. She was gathering evidence. I don't know why she never told me." There was a long silence on the other end of the line, and then Mark spoke, his voice carefully measured. "Dad, are you sure about this? I mean, Mom, she was always so involved in the community. This doesn't sound like her." "I know," I said, my voice shaky. "But the evidence is right in front of me, and I don't know what to do with it." Mark didn't respond right away. Finally he said, Just be careful, okay? If this is really as serious as it sounds, we need to figure out what's going on. I don't want you getting hurt over something that might be bigger than we think." "I will," I said, though I wasn't sure what careful even meant at this point. I didn't know who to trust anymore, but I knew I had to find the truth, no matter what. "I'll figure it out." After we hung up, I sat there in silence, the weight of the situation settling in. It was clear now. I wasn't just dealing with a few papers in an office. I was tangled up in something much bigger, something that could destroy everything Christine had built and everything I thought I knew about her. I looked at the files again. I had to know more. I couldn't stop now. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was in over my head. The deeper I dug into Christine's secret life, the more questions surfaced. The evidence was piling up, but it still didn't make sense. Christine had kept all of this hidden from me, and now I was left to piece together a puzzle that felt like it would never be complete. I needed answers, but I didn't know where to look next. That's when I remembered Grace. She had been in contact with Christine, and from what I gathered, she was someone who had been working with Christine on the cases she had been investigating. I hadn't heard much about her, but there had been a few notes about her in the files I found. Christine had trusted her, and now I needed to trust her too. I didn't waste time. I picked up the prepaid phone and dialed the number that had appeared in one of Christine's old texts. It rang 3 times before someone picked up. "Hello?" A woman's voice came through the line, cautious but familiar. "Grace?" I asked, my voice firm but unsure. "Who's this?" she replied, her tone guarded. "It's Doug, Christine's husband," I said, my words coming out too quickly, as if I were rushing to explain myself. "I need to talk to you. I found the files. I know what Christine was involved in. You were part of it, weren't you?" There was a long pause before Grace spoke again, this time softer. "You shouldn't have called me. You don't understand what you're getting into." "I don't have time to waste," I shot back. "I need to know everything. What was Christine working on? What did she get herself tangled in?" She hesitated for a moment, then said, "Meet me. Tonight, at Corky and Lenny's. I'll explain everything, but you need to promise me something first." "What?" I asked, growing impatient. "Promise me you'll be careful," she said, her voice laced with fear. "If you don't, this could get worse than you think. You have no idea who you're up against." I paused for a moment. "I promise," I said, though I didn't know if I was lying to her or to myself. But I had no choice. I had to find out more. The rest of the day passed in a blur. The weight of everything I had uncovered sat heavy on my chest. I thought about Christine, about how I had spent years trusting her, loving her. And now, all of it seemed like a lie. She had kept so much from me. What else had she been hiding? Who was she really? When night fell, I made my way to the diner. It wasn't far from home, but the trip felt like it took forever. As I drove, I tried to clear my mind, but all I could think about was what I might learn from Grace. Was she going to tell me that Christine had been involved in something even darker than I had imagined? Or was she just going to confirm what I already suspected? That my wife had been living a double life. I parked outside Corky and Lenny's and walked inside. It was a small diner, the kind of place you wouldn't expect secrets to unfold. But as soon as I walked in, I saw Grace sitting in the back booth. She looked out of place, nervous, a little shaky. She saw me and waved me over. I sat down across from her, my hands cold despite the warmth of the room. She looked at me with wide eyes, as if she were trying to decide whether or not she could trust me. "You're right," she said, breaking the silence. "Christine was involved in something bigger than I can explain over the phone. I didn't want to drag you into it. I thought it was better if you never knew." "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, my voice quieter now. "You worked with her. You must have known what she was doing." "I did," Grace admitted, her voice trembling. "But I couldn't get her to stop. The more she uncovered, the more dangerous it became. You don't understand, Doug. She wasn't just investigating. She was threatening powerful people. People who have a lot to lose. I tried to warn her, but she wouldn't listen." "Who are these people?" I demanded, leaning forward. Who was she going after? What was she trying to expose? Grace lowered her voice, glancing around the room as if she expected someone to overhear. "It's bigger than you think. There's a network of businesses, all linked by one man, Harold Boyle. He's a banker at Lake Erie Trust. He's behind all of it. The money laundering, the fraud. Christine found it all. She knew too much." I felt the air leave my lungs. "Harold Boyle?" I whispered. "I know him. He's been in town forever." "Why would Christine go after him?" "Because he's untouchable," Grace replied. "And he's not the only one. There are other people involved, people you wouldn't believe. That's why Christine kept everything from you. She was trying to protect you." I sat back, processing the information. This was worse than I had imagined. Christine had been investigating a dangerous network, and now it was clear why she had kept it from me. But what did it mean for me? What was I supposed to do now? Grace leaned in, her voice barely above a whisper. "Doug, they know you're looking into this. They know what you found. And if you keep going, they won't stop until you're silenced." I stood up abruptly, my mind racing. "I'm not going to stop," I said, my voice steady. "I'm going to finish what Christine started." Grace's face paled. "You're making a mistake," she warned. "You don't know who you're up against. They'll do whatever it takes to protect themselves." But I didn't listen. I couldn't. The truth was out there, and I wasn't going to back down. The night after my meeting with Grace, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I had just learned enough to know that I was standing on a precipice, and one wrong move could send me plummeting. Harold Boyle, the name that had surfaced repeatedly in Christine's investigation, was tied to something far darker than I could have imagined. I had to act fast. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that no matter how much I uncovered, the danger was only just beginning. I spent the next day planning my next move. I knew I couldn't do this alone, not anymore. Corey had to be part of this. I wasn't sure how he would react or if he'd even tell me the truth, but the fact that his name had come up in Christine's investigation meant I couldn't ignore it. I needed to confront him, but I wasn't sure where to start. The last time we spoke, Corey had seemed defensive, afraid. He had tried to justify his actions, but his guilt had been palpable. If he was still involved with Boyle and the others, I needed to find out how deep he was in. But more than that, I needed to know if he was willing to help me bring it all down. I dialed his number, the familiar tone ringing in my ear. When he answered, his voice was tentative, like he was expecting me to be angry. I didn't know if I was angry. I was confused, hurt, and overwhelmed. But one thing was clear. I needed answers. "Corey," I said, trying to sound calm, though I could feel my hands shaking. "We need to talk." "I know," he replied, his voice low. "I've been waiting for you to call. Look, Doug, I know what I've done. But I didn't have a choice. I was in too deep. Harold Boyle, the people he's connected to, they control everything." I gripped the phone tighter, feeling my chest tighten. "What do you mean, they control everything? You're telling me you were working with Boyle this whole time?" "I never wanted to hurt anyone," Corey said quickly, his voice shaky. "But I was pressured, Doug. They had leverage over me. They had leverage over Jenna. They were using us both. I didn't know what else to do." The mention of Jenna made my stomach turn. I had always seen Corey as a decent man, someone who would do anything for his family. But now, I wasn't sure what to believe. He sounded like he was unraveling, and part of me felt sympathy for him, but the other part, the part that felt betrayed, wanted to lash out. "I don't know if I can believe you," I said, my voice low. "But I need to know everything, Corey. If you're going to help me, now is the time. What did you do? What's really going on?" There was a long pause, and then Corey spoke, his voice barely audible. "I don't know how to make this right, Doug, but I'm willing to help you take him down. I don't want to be part of this anymore. I can't live with what I've done." I leaned back in my chair, trying to process what he was saying. Part of me wanted to believe him, wanted to think that Corey was still the man I had once trusted, but I also knew that trust had been shattered. If he was telling the truth, then we were in even deeper than I had imagined. "I'm meeting with him tomorrow," Corey continued, his voice tight with fear. "He's expecting me. I don't know if he's going to try to shut me up, or if he's going to try to manipulate me again. But I need you there, Doug. If we're going to do this, we need to be ready." My pulse quickened. "Where are we meeting?" "Cedar Point Park," Corey replied. "Near the back entrance. No one will be there. I don't know how long we'll have before someone catches on." I paused for a moment, weighing the options. Every part of me screamed that this was a trap, that I was walking into something dangerous. But I couldn't turn back now. I had already come too far, and Christine's investigation was too important to ignore. Whatever had been going on behind closed doors for so long, it was time to bring it into the light. "All right," I said, my voice steady. "I'll be there. We'll handle this together." After we hung up, I sat in silence, my mind racing. I was going to meet with Corey, but I had no idea what to expect. Was he telling the truth? Was he still part of Boyle's web? Or had he truly seen the error of his ways? And what would Boyle do when he realized that we were closing in on him? One thing was clear. The clock was ticking, and if I didn't act fast, everything I had uncovered might slip away. I had no choice but to face whatever lay ahead. As I prepared to leave, I thought about Christine again, her secret life, her investigation. She had known what was at stake. She had put herself in danger for a cause greater than herself. And now, it was up to me to finish what she had started. I couldn't back down. Do you think Corey is being honest? Or is he just trying to cover his tracks? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. The drive to Cedar Point Park felt like a lifetime. I kept replaying my conversation with Corey in my mind, trying to figure out whether I could trust him. Could he really be telling the truth? Or was he just another cog in the machine, a pawn being played by Boyle and his network? I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Everything about this felt wrong, yet I couldn't turn back now. I'd uncovered too much, and the pieces were falling into place. Whatever had been going on behind closed doors was starting to spill out. But now, with the stakes higher than ever, I had to act. I had to finish what Christine started, no matter the cost. When I pulled into the park, the air felt thick with tension. The place was nearly deserted, save for a few cars scattered around the lot. I parked by the back entrance, just like Corey had said. I sat there for a moment, hands gripping the steering wheel, heart racing in my chest. This was it, the moment I had been dreading and anticipating at the same time. The truth was within reach, but so was danger. I stepped out of the car and walked toward the entrance. The park, usually full of life and excitement, felt unnervingly quiet now. As I approached the meeting spot, I saw Corey standing in the shadows, his back to me. His shoulders were tense, and he kept glancing over his shoulder as if waiting for someone to show up. "You made it," he said, turning to face me as I approached. "I'm here," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "Now, what's really going on, Corey?" He took a deep breath, running his hand through his hair. "I don't know how to make this right. I've tried, but every time I think I'm out, they pull me back in." He hesitated, glancing around nervously. "Doug, you have to understand. Harold Boyle is powerful. He has connections everywhere. And if we try to take him down, it's not just us we're putting at risk. It's everyone." "Then why are we here?" I shot back, frustrated. "If you're so scared of him, why are you still involved in this?" Corey looked at me, his eyes full of regret. "Because I thought I could fix it. I thought I could clean up my mess and get out. But now I see how deep it goes. This isn't just about us anymore. Boyle is connected to people in high places. He's controlling the money, the businesses, everything. And if we expose him, they'll come after us, harder than you can imagine." I felt my anger rise. "Then why did you tell me, Corey? Why did you bring me into this mess if you were just going to back out?" "I didn't know what else to do," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I thought maybe, just maybe, if we exposed him, we could stop it before it went any further. But now, I'm not so sure. I'm not sure we can survive this." I stared at him, processing his words. Every part of me wanted to believe him. I wanted to think that he was still the man I had once trusted, the man I had welcomed into my family. But I also knew that I had no more room for doubt. This wasn't just about Corey anymore. It was about something far bigger. It was about the truth. And I wasn't going to stop until I had it. "We're doing this," I said, my voice firm. "We're going to bring Boyle down, whatever it takes." Corey's face darkened. "Doug, don't say that. You don't know what you're walking into. You're not ready for this. None of us are." I looked at him, shaking my head. "I'm already in, Corey, and I'm not turning back." Before he could respond, I heard a car engine approaching in the distance. My heart skipped a beat. This was it. Boyle's men had arrived. I didn't know how many of them there were, but I could feel the tension building in the air. "Corey, get ready," I said, my voice low. "We're not alone." Corey's eyes widened, and he looked around frantically. "This is bad, Doug. We need to get out of here. Now." But it was too late. The car had already pulled up, and I could see the shadow of a figure stepping out of the vehicle. It wasn't Harold Boyle himself, but I recognized the man, one of Boyle's associates. I had seen him around town, always lurking in the background, always watching. "Stay calm," I whispered to Corey. "This isn't over yet." The man approached, his eyes scanning us both. "You Doug Leo?" he asked, his voice gruff. I didn't answer right away. I just stared at him, weighing my options. I wasn't sure if this was a confrontation or a warning, but I knew one thing. There was no turning back now. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice steady but laced with tension. The man smirked. "Harold Boyle wants to have a chat. He says it's time to end this little investigation of yours." I took a step forward, my resolve hardening. "You tell Boyle we're not done. Not by a long shot." The man's smile faded, and he took a step closer to Corey. "You don't understand, do you? Boyle doesn't lose. You think you can just walk away from this? Think again." I could feel the walls closing in, but this wasn't fear. It was something else, something colder. This was the point of no return, and I wasn't going to back down. Not now. Not ever. What would you do if someone came to you with a warning like this? Would you back down or stand your ground? Let us know in the comments below. I knew the moment the man stepped forward that there was no turning back. The tension in the air was thick, heavy with the kind of danger that felt as real as the cold night air. I stood there, staring him down, knowing what was at stake. My mind raced, but my body stayed calm. I had come this far. No one, not even Harold Boyle, was going to stop me now. The man's gaze flicked to Corey, who was nervously shifting from foot to foot, his eyes darting between me and the approaching car. It was clear he wasn't ready for this, but I was. I had to be. The car door opened, and out stepped Boyle's associate, Marcus, a middle-aged man I had seen around town a few times but never spoken to. He had a calm, almost casual air about him, but there was something in his eyes that said he wasn't here for a conversation. He was here to send a message. "Time's up, Doug," Marcus said, his voice steady and cold. "You've made your move, but now it's our turn." I didn't flinch. "I'm not afraid of you, Marcus," I said, my voice low but firm. "And I'm definitely not afraid of Boyle." Marcus's lips curled into a faint smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You should be," he said. "You have no idea what you're dealing with." I stepped closer to him, my feet crunching the gravel beneath me. The darkness of the park only seemed to make him more menacing. "I know exactly what I'm dealing with. Your boss, Boyle. He's a crook, a manipulator. And I'm going to make sure he pays for everything he's done." His smile faded, and for a brief moment I saw a flicker of something cold in his eyes. "You really don't know when to quit, do you?" he said, his voice darkening. "Boyle's not someone you want to go up against. He's not someone anyone survives going up against." I stood my ground. "I'm not afraid of him. Or you." Marcus took a step closer, his eyes narrowing. "You'll regret this. Boyle has more power than you can even imagine. And Corey? He's already made his choice. He's either with us or against us." Corey, who had been silent until now, spoke up. "Doug, you don't know what they can do. You don't know how far they'll go. Please, just stop. It's too late." I turned to him, my face hard. "It's never too late, Corey. You made your choice, and now you're going to help me finish this, whether you like it or not." The air around us was thick with anticipation. Marcus took another step toward me, but this time I didn't back away. I wasn't scared anymore. Not of him, not of Boyle, not of the consequences. I had come too far. The truth was out there, and it was time to expose it for everyone to see. Before Marcus could react, I heard the sound of approaching sirens. My heart skipped a beat. Had Grace contacted the authorities? Had she gone behind my back and taken things into her own hands? Damn it, Marcus muttered under his breath. This wasn't part of the plan. I turned to Corey. "What did you do?" I asked, my voice sharp. "Did you call for backup?" Corey shook his head, his eyes wide with fear. "I didn't do anything, Doug. I swear." It didn't matter now. I knew the police wouldn't get here in time to stop what was coming, but I had the upper hand. Marcus could feel it too. His posture shifted, and I saw the faintest sign of doubt flicker in his eyes. I took a step back, trying to keep my cool. "You think Boyle's going to get away with everything he's done? You think he's going to walk away from this unscathed?" I asked, my voice firm. Marcus didn't answer. Instead, he looked over his shoulder, as if expecting reinforcements. But when he turned back to me, something had changed. The confidence in his stance had faltered. "All right, Doug," he said, his voice cold and resigned. "You've made your point. But this isn't over. Boyle won't let you walk away from this. No one walks away from him." "I'll walk away when it's finished," I said, meeting his gaze with a certainty I didn't even know I had. "And I'll make sure he pays for everything he's done." Corey looked between Marcus and me, his face a mix of confusion and fear. "Doug, please," he said again. "I'm begging you. We need to get out of here before they—" But it was too late. The sound of footsteps behind me made my heart race, and when I turned around, I saw two more men approaching. They were big, dressed in black, and they moved with the precision of people who had done this kind of thing 1,000 times. I stepped forward, keeping my eyes on Marcus. "Is this what you've come to? Sending more muscle to intimidate me?" "You should have stayed quiet, Doug," Marcus said, his voice growing colder by the second. "Now you're in over your head. And when Boyle is done with you, you'll wish you'd never opened that door." I wasn't listening to him anymore. I had a choice to make: stay here and let Boyle's people control me, or keep fighting. I knew what I had to do. "I'm not backing down," I said, my voice calm but filled with resolve. "This ends tonight. What would you do if you were in my position? Fight back or walk away? Let us know in the comments below." The tension in the air thickened, heavier than ever before. The two new men who'd appeared behind me stood like sentinels, blocking any hope of escape. It was clear that the confrontation had reached a tipping point. Marcus, his expression cold and calculating, was no longer the biggest threat in the room. He was merely the messenger. The real danger lay in the men he had brought with him, and I knew it. I had to act fast, but my body felt frozen, locked in place by the weight of everything happening around me. I had come here to confront Boyle's men, to finally put an end to the corruption that had poisoned my life. But now that I was staring down the barrel of this conflict, the full weight of the consequences hit me. Could I really follow through with this? "You have no idea who you're messing with," Marcus said, stepping closer, his tone threatening. "Boyle doesn't lose, and neither do we." I glanced over at Corey, whose fear had reached a new level. He looked like a man on the edge, someone who wasn't sure whether to fight or run. I could feel his tension radiating off of him, but I couldn't let his fear control me. I had come too far to turn back now. "Corey," I said quietly, my eyes never leaving Marcus, "I need you to trust me. We finish this tonight. You can either help me, or you can stay out of the way." Corey swallowed hard, his eyes darting between me and the men standing near him. I don't know what to do," he admitted, his voice shaking. "We finish this," I repeated, my voice firm. "You can't keep hiding from the truth, Corey. It's time to face it. The sirens I had heard earlier had grown louder, and a small part of me began to believe that help was on the way. I had contacted the authorities earlier that day, at Grace's suggestion, and though I hadn't fully trusted her at the time, I was beginning to see that maybe, just maybe, she had been right to push me into action. I was ready to confront Boyle, ready to take down the entire network that had been built on lies, deceit, and manipulation. But the more I thought about it, the clearer it became. The people standing in front of me were only a small piece of the puzzle. The real battle would come when Boyle's empire started to crumble, when the truth was revealed, when the media stormed in, and when the public started asking questions. That would be when the real fight began. The two men who had appeared from the shadows were closing in, and I knew they weren't here to negotiate. They were here to eliminate. It was a fact I had known all along, but now that it was in front of me, it felt like the truth was slamming into me. I felt a sudden surge of anger. These men, these criminals, had used people like Corey, like Christine, and like me for their own gain. They had turned lives upside down for profit. They had controlled everything, and they thought they could intimidate me into backing down. Not anymore. Without thinking, I moved quickly, my hand diving into my jacket pocket. I pulled out the old flip phone I had been using to communicate with Grace. I had kept it on me as a precaution, and now it was time to use it. With one quick motion, I pressed the button, sending a prearranged text to the number I had saved. Now. Marcus's eyes narrowed as he saw the movement. "What are you doing?" he demanded, but it was too late. A moment later, I heard the screech of tires on gravel, and I knew the cavalry was arriving. A black SUV pulled into the parking lot, and two uniformed officers stepped out. The look on Marcus's face shifted instantly from confidence to panic. "Move!" Marcus shouted to the two men by my side, but the damage had already been done. The authorities were here, and they weren't going to let this slide. The men that Boyle had sent to intimidate me were now surrounded. It wasn't over, but it was a start. I turned to Corey, my heart pounding in my chest. "This is it," I said. "We're taking them down." The two officers approached, their eyes scanning the scene before they turned to me. I could see the recognition in their eyes. They knew who I was, and they knew the significance of what was happening. This wasn't just a confrontation. This was the beginning of something bigger. Something that would change the town, the businesses, and maybe even the lives of people who had been caught up in Boyle's web. "What's going on here?" one of the officers asked, looking between Marcus and me. I didn't wait to explain. I stepped forward, my voice steady as I spoke. "These men are part of an illegal operation led by Harold Boyle. He's been laundering money through businesses like Rivergate, Strongsville Auto, and Harbor Pines Assisted Living. I've got all the evidence you need to bring him down." I handed the officer the folder I had been carrying, the one filled with all the documents Christine had gathered. The officer nodded, then motioned for the other officers to move in. As the officers handcuffed Marcus and the two men, I felt the weight of everything begin to lift. It wasn't over, not by a long shot, but the first step had been taken. The truth was coming out. And as I stood there, watching Boyle's associates being led away in cuffs, I realized one thing. Christine's work wasn't in vain. She had exposed the corruption, the lies. She had fought for justice. And now, I was finishing what she had started. But even as the police took control of the situation, I knew that this was just the beginning. Boyle wouldn't go down without a fight. And his connections in high places would make sure that the battle wasn't over. But for the first time since Christine's death, I felt a sense of hope. We were taking back control. We were going to expose the truth, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. Do you think the authorities will be able to take down Boyle's entire operation, or is this just the tip of the iceberg? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as interesting and even more intriguing than you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.